with all the pumpkins out, brings back some memories for me. And as early as 5, I don't know, maybe some of you have even earlier memories of your life. One of my pronounced memories was 5 years old. I was in kindergarten, I was at school, and my teacher had rolled out banner paper on the floor, you know, that big white paper, and she was busy cutting out a picket fence out of it. And what we were going to do is we were going to make pumpkins, decorate them our own unique ways, and we were going to put them up on the wall on top of the picket fence. So it was taking her a while. I don't know if she must have given us like free time or something while she was busy cutting. So the kids thought, oh, this would be fun. Let's jump over the fence. So we were jumping over the fence. And I jumped over the fence, but I didn't quite make it. I landed on it, and I tore it. And my teacher, Miss Hammond, was not happy. Kitty, go sit at your table. It was my first major public mistake that I still remember. Because everyone in the room was like, Kitty. Ah, yeah, what a joy. So it turns out that was not going to be the only mistake I would make. Big surprise to me, whose job throughout her entire life has been to do everything right. So yeah, that was difficult. So I won't tell you all of my mistakes, but another one that's kind of interesting for me is that I got married twice and divorced in between, and then divorced again. So 2 marriages, 2 divorces, where the first one was not a mistake. It was absolutely perfect. The getting married part and the divorce part was absolutely perfect, fully clear to my soul that this was what I was meant to do as part of my spiritual path, my growth path, the reason that I came to planet Earth, or one of them anyway. The second marriage was a mistake. And it was the kind of thing where I felt like, this is weird because 2 marriages, 2 divorces, one is not a mistake and the other one is. So I just want to stop right here, since our topic today, when we're talking about the weight of the world on our shoulders, mistakes can create that weight, right? So I want to ask you, and I'm going to ask Liz to run around with a microphone this morning, sorry I didn't warn you about this, Vadim. Are you ready for a handheld mic? All right, great. Live stream as well. We want to be able to hear. What is your definition of a mistake, or how do you know it's classified as a mistake? I don't need to hear the mistake. I just want to hear how you know it's a mistake. That might take some thinking. Okay, so Brenda's got an answer here. What makes it classify as a mistake?
When it doesn't come out right.
Doesn't come out right. And that's relative, right? Right is relative. So for you, in that moment, for that thing, didn't come out right. What else, Kevin?
When society says it's wrong.
When society says it's wrong. Oh, interesting. Okay.
When we don't look at the blind spots.
When we don't look at the blind spots. Okay. So we make a mistake when we're not taking it all in, right? Did you have something? Somebody over here?
When I hurt myself or somebody else.
Yeah, hurt, yes.
This is similar when the results are not what we expected.
Okay.
How it makes you feel.
How it makes you feel, yeah. This side of the room will not be denied. Shoshana, Mia.
When you can't find any good in it.
When you can't find any good in it, yeah. If you're watching online, put something in the chat, let us know.
I don't think I believe in mistakes.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about that, but she doesn't believe there is mistakes. I get that. Just depends on which day you ask me and which mistake it is. Andy?
When it doesn't feel right.
Doesn't
I agree with.
feel right, yeah. Great. Anybody else? Okay, one more, Bill, Scott. Are we getting anything online, Parker? Anybody looking at Facebook by any chance? Sorry.
I think that we're here for a learning experience, so there are no mistakes.
There are no mistakes.
Just things to learn from.
Just things to learn from. Okay, so there's going to be 2 truths in this message today. I'm going to agree with those who say there are no mistakes when you're looking at it from one perspective. We're done. Thank you. And I'm going to offer that sometimes I can classify things as a mistake. So let's talk about this. Let's just put mistakes in 3 categories here. One would be the daily regrets, that we might feel are wrong. And it's the kind of thing where we feel like we could have done better at that point, or it wasn't perfect. Like if you're a 1 on the Enneagram, that will just haunt you your entire life, which is you have to do everything right. Maybe you let someone down. So those basic things we do every day, it might be about how we handled money was a mistake, or how we were dishonest with our boss. Maybe it was we hurt someone's feelings. Maybe we criticized our spouse on a day when they really could have used our encouragement. So that's the kind of thing also where we give our power away, where we let someone else tell us what to do and we follow that even though our inner guidance says no. We ignore our health and we pay for it later. And there's many different opportunities day in and day out that feel like mistakes to us. So if you say, yes, but I learned from that, great. Learn from that. But it's not the kind of thing I want to do again. I want to learn from it. So if we don't learn from it, is that a mistake? Okay, There's also the mistakes that we might classify in the immoral, criminal category, where there's actually laws against certain types of mistakes. Hopefully none of you have run into that in your life, but if you have and you're listening to me right now, then I'm just going to say you're on the right path. You're making a good adjustment here if you're interested in hearing these kinds of messages. And the third classification of mistake, just for my sake today, leave it alone if it doesn't fit for your terminology, but I call it a high-level mistake. And the high-level mistake is, first of all, what somebody thinks is a punishment from God. It's where spirituality is involved, where we've committed an unforgivable sin. And I'll just say that I don't agree that we get punished by God. I don't think there's a God on a throne that's judging our actions and deciding where that is a mistake and that is not, and therefore you are bad or wrong. So it's not that kind of high-level mistake. As a matter of fact, I love what Sonia Choquette says about this up here on the screen. She says, the universe loves you and only holds you in pure adoration. It's not the one that's asking for corrections. It's your own soul that longs to come into alignment with the flow of greater consciousness. Capital G, capital C. The universe loves you. So really, when we feel like we've blown it, it's because our own soul wants to be in alignment with the flow of greater consciousness, also known as our higher self. So this is what I came up with as a definition for a high-level mistake. It's any choice or action which produces a consequence that doesn't align with your higher self or your spiritual purpose. So, at that level, let's work with that as a mistake, that if we don't align with our higher self or our spiritual purpose, then it's something we could have done without. So, when I look at that second marriage of mine, it was a detour from the path that I was on in my spiritual growth. It was a delay. It was actually motivated by fear. I've told you before that it was maybe a month before the wedding, and my fiance was trying to get me to just move in now instead of waiting till after the wedding, and I had this strong feeling of, I'm just starting to like living alone and being on my own. And that was a form of guidance that was trying to keep me on that path. But by then, the invitations had gone out. I really admire people who call off their weddings. I really do. I really, really do. So I chose not to listen to my inner guidance. I classify that as a mistake because I wasn't aligned with my higher self, and I was actually avoiding my purpose because I was too embarrassed. My true lesson and path at that point was learning how to live on my own with a sense of worth and value and ability. I had lived with my parents all my life until I got married and lived 10 years in a marriage with someone else, and then I was just part of a marriage. This was the first time I was learning how to stand on my own, make my own decisions, come into my own power. And I really took a backward step when I got married. And as a matter of fact, it was part of what led to the divorce, not going into a lot of stuff, but it just basically was having to keep pulling back on who I was in order to keep peace. So it was absolutely, to me, a mistake. So you mentioned a few things. How we know when we've made a mistake is that the results make us unhappy, uncomfortable. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like ourselves. It's incongruent with who we are. It may even withhold love from ourselves or others based on what we've done. And the deal with a mistake is it's just like any other thought, any other decision. It carries energy based on what's behind it, and that energy attracts. So according to the divine law, we will continue to be confronted by our mistakes throughout our life until we are willing to look at them and address them and repair them in whatever way our heart is calling us to do. Because as we send out to the world, that energy is coming back to us. Now, we've got a lot working against us to fix that mistake, and the ego is number one on the list because it responds to mistakes in a lot of different ways. That human part of ourself will either not even notice we've made a mistake because we're always blaming it on the outside world, not realizing that it was our choices that created this unhappiness. Instead, we'd rather put it on someone else or just sit there and wonder, why is this happening to me? We also, sometimes our higher self, or no, sometimes our ego, our human self, tends to lie about our mistakes or get defensive, or we get overly harsh towards ourselves and become a major critic. And all of that only makes the mistake worse. And I think we can probably all relate to one of those experiences. So what I wanted to focus on now is how to release the weight of the mistakes that we make, whether they're big or small. I mean, we're going to start with the premise that you know that you've made a mistake. So step one here is take responsibility. Take responsibility for the mistake. I made a mistake. Think about how many times in your life you've actually said those words out loud to someone else. It's rare, right? I made a mistake. It's, the ego will say, you idiot, or you shouldn't have done that, or you should have done this, but it won't just own it and say, I made a mistake. So for training purposes today, let's just say it together. I made a mistake. Say it one more time. I made a mistake. Yeah, see, it didn't kill you. No one's going up in flames here. So just an acknowledgement that this was my choice. I did it. This is my responsibility. Now, the other important thing about this step is, hear this please, just because you made the mistake does not make you bad. If we could learn this lesson, our world would change overnight. I just got goosebumps, so I'm thinking that's true. It doesn't make you bad. What it does is, to say I made a mistake reveals your wisdom. If you're able to say it out loud in front of other people, it makes you respectable in their eyes. It actually presents a level of maturity that the ego doesn't normally produce. And it sets an example for other people, not only to see you own it, maybe because of a mistake that you perpetrated against them. It calms them down, but it also sets an example for the fact that they can do it as well when they're in the same situation and nobody's going to die for it. We have got to start doing that. I made a mistake. And if we could do it with an energy of neutrality, then you're really on the path. I made a mistake, but not that kind of I made a mistake. But I made a mistake from a place of this is mine. And then secondly, we want to sit in the quiet for a while and just see if we can't put a name on whatever that belief was in our consciousness that took us into that mistake. So a lot of times we make mistakes because whatever it is we're choosing to do is meant to protect us from something or to hold on to something because the ego thinks this is the only way. A lot of crimes are committed because of that. A lot of crimes are committed because we think this is the only way to get what I need. Now, doesn't mean we were conscious and knew that it was wrong at the time, but it's still something we need to just touch base with and find out what was the error belief in me that led me to make this decision. And it's also sometimes a need for love. We're trying to become accepted in other people's eyes or avoid rejection, and we make that mistake. And it's, one of the things I think somebody over here was talking about the result, how you know it's a mistake is because the world says it is, but also we do it to fit in, even though it's not necessarily for the highest good for ourselves. It's trying to be like the rest of the world, when none of us are called to be like the rest of the world. Let me just say that out loud again. None of us are called to be like the rest of the world. So when we make mistakes, in order to do that, it's like strike two. And then the other step in this is going back to what the truth is. This is why you come here on Sundays. This is why you listen to these messages, is to be reminded of what the truth is when you're struggling like this. And the first truth is there's only one power in this universe, and it loves you. It wants your good for you. It's working for your good if you let it and align with it and agree with it. So if we made a mistake because we think somebody's out to get us, we go back to the truth of there's only one power working in my life, and it's God. If we made a mistake because we're trying to get a need met, we remind ourselves that the only source of good is God, and God is always giving of itself. Its divine energy is always present in our lives, available to us. If we could just learn how to look at it, see it, appreciate it, form it, and fashion it with our faith and our imagination. So knowing that truth and recognizing ultimately with the one presence in the universe, we are all that presence. That aside from the immaturity of the ego, we are spirit, and therefore we are already perfect and whole. That part of ourself doesn't make mistakes. So it's moving back into that identity. It's not the ego. It's not the roles we play. It's not our bodies. It's just our spirit. That's who we are. That's the part of us that's eternal, that will live on and see. I wasn't making the mistakes. It was my ego. And that's okay. This is where it's time to recognize I came into this venture to inhabit this physical body and to work with this ego because it makes mistakes. The human being is a champion mistake maker, living in an environment on planet Earth that is filled with challenges. We came here on purpose in order to walk hand in hand with our ego and watch it make mistakes and then try and train it up and transform it into something of light to lift the weight. And all the while, our spirit is learning from this. Our spirit is learning from this and growing. So was it a mistake if the spirit learns and grows? Okay, let's stop having that conversation. But let's take on the idea that if the mistake is delaying us, inhibiting us from really learning why we're here and fulfilling our purpose for being, then let's address it. And one of the first things that we want to do is pay attention to the feelings of the ego and start training it up through the feelings. So one of the first feelings that we get when we're making mistakes is guilt. And it feels very heavy, and the guilt usually says, I'm bad, I should have known better. So that unacceptable quality starts to take hold in your consciousness and grab you and brings up this negative feeling. And as soon as it starts to feel bad, just know that's not in alignment with how my spirit sees this. I am not bad. I made a mistake. I am not bad. I made a mistake. Say that. I am not bad. I made a mistake. Okay? So when you just work with guilty, there's nothing you can do with guilty. That's not a help at all. There's nothing useful about that conscious level. So how about if we switch when we notice we're in guilt? How about if we switch to responsible? I am responsible. That means I'm able to respond. I'm not hopelessly guilty for the rest of my life. I'm able to respond to this, and I am responding to this. I am choosing in this moment. I know that this is my responsibility. It removes the negative energy, and it starts to empower you with a feeling like, this isn't the end of me. There's something more available to me, okay? So go from guilt to responsible. Another thing that often comes up that we feel is, I feel so stupid. Except stupid is not a feeling. What is it? What is stupid when we hold that idea? I feel so stupid. Stupid is really a judgment. It's a value judgment. So see if you can dig a little deeper, and what do you think an emotion might be when you feel stupid? Ashamed? Embarrassed? Say it again. Exposed? Is that a feeling? But when you're exposed, what do you feel? Vulnerable? Scared? Yeah. All good emotions that point us to, this is not a solution. I can't do anything with stupid or embarrassed or exposed, but I can do something with, I was unaware. I was inexperienced. I was naive. So because I love you so much and I know you love me, I'll just keep telling you mistakes. So one of my mistakes recently, not that long ago, was me backing out of my driveway and running into my neighbor who was backing out of his driveway. Yeah. So I classified that as a mistake because I could have done something better that day than hit my neighbor. So here's a good opportunity to practice what I preached. And thankfully, I was in my higher self in that moment. Honestly, it was grace. I don't know why, considering everything was going on in my life that day. But I could have just burst into tears, or I could have driven off. That would have been fun, wouldn't it? I live right across the street from you. Yeah, this is going to go somewhere. Yeah. But what I ended up doing was I pulled back in my driveway. I got out of my car. I walked over to them. They were pulling into their driveway, and they had the window rolled down, and I just stuck my head in and said, is everybody okay? They had little kids in the back seat. You know, it could have gone really bad. They could have been really angry, terrified at what I had done. But you know what they did? They said, things like this happen. We just both weren't aware of what was going on. And as we continued to talk about it, we both wanted to blame it on our cars. We did. We both went to, why didn't my warning system tell me? And he said that first, and I said, hey, I have one of those. Why didn't you tell? Talking in my car now. Okay, so the good news is that we have a chance here in those moments to become present, to see how we can be in the mistake and take responsibility for it. And gratefully, it was a moment where we both just accepted each other. We both chose to say equally responsible. And it was a lesson learned. You don't think that as I back out of my driveway now, I don't look 10,000 times at his garage door to see if he's coming out? So lessons can be learned, but did we ever say, you're bad? No. We just acknowledge it, see what we need to do to fix it, and move on, right? So this is an opportunity to go from feeling stupid to getting educated, becoming more experienced, learning a little bit more, thinking before we act. I will own that in that particular day, There's just 8,000 things going on in my life, and though I did look both ways, I probably didn't look long enough out my back mirror because I was in a hurry, and that's another thing we might want to pay attention to. The ego might say, you're always doing this. So how about this? Am I really? First of all, let's just cut to the chase on that. Am I really always doing that? And if there is a habit there of always doing that, then another opportunity to just sit there and ask yourself, why? If your mistake was protecting yourself, you're regularly doing, or sorry, if your mistake was arguing when you make a mistake, in this case, am I always running into people behind me? No, but today when I did, it's an opportunity for me to stop and think, what are you doing, Kitty? Slow down. Be present. Meditate more. Get clear on the surroundings around you. And, you know, maybe it's not you're in a hurry, but you're just distracted by other things. So keep checking in. If you're always doing something, just keep checking in and asking yourself, what's going on in me all the time that makes me want to keep protecting myself, or that makes me want to hurt other people, or that makes me want to misuse money? Those are all good questions for yourself. And then the most common feeling that we have when we make a mistake is fear. You know, am I going to wind up in jail over this? Is this fixable? Am I going to lose out? Am I going to be rejected? The fear comes up feeling like I'm not going to get what I need. And again, an opportunity to switch to the present moment and ask ourselves, what is true here? What can meet my needs that are always available to me? I mean, keep remembering that even though the law does require that we take responsibility, here's probably another one of the messages I want you to take home today. Even though we're making mistakes that cause the divine law to bring us consequences, love fulfills the law. Love fulfills the law, which means we don't have to take equal consequences to what we sent out. If we can respond in love, love answers that affect syndrome from a higher perspective. So start first by loving ourselves. That's the most important thing we can do when we're trying to heal a mistake. And as we do that, please, please, please start removing the stigma that just because you made a mistake, it means you're bad. Remove it for yourself and for everybody else, recognizing that all human beings make mistakes. If we are going to stop and say you're bad every time you make a mistake, what's that going to wind up with? A really messy world to live in. So I'm talking about recognizing that remembering this environment is designed to be a challenge. Remember that the human beingness of us is designed to make mistakes. And if we can love the human through this process, as we make those flaws, if we can love the spiritual perfection that we are, if we can love the flaws themselves, then we have a chance to fulfill the law with love, which means we're going to get solutions. We're going to have the resources available to us. We're going to be able to make amends and be able to guide ourselves towards healing. That's what the power of love will do for this. Do it starting with yourself. Now, what if you are the victim of someone else's mistake, or more often, the observer of someone else making a mistake? Anybody seen someone else make a mistake? Well, what if you're standing here under your mistake trying to love yourself, but they're over there saying, shame on you? What if they don't love me? What good does it do for me to love myself? Something that the Course in Miracles says is, in my defenselessness lies my salvation. It's when I stop defending myself that I'm actually able to get to the heart of this and the healing of this. So the observer, even though they may not be holding love for you, trust that if you stand in love, that you are going to fulfill the law with love rather than have to succumb to whatever they think of you. Here's my ideal world. I'm going to ask you to read this together with me up here on the screen. Together, we imagine a world where when we make a mistake, we own it without fear, we learn from it without judgment, we make amends without expectation, and we rise in consciousness where love sets us free. Okay, so now let's just take the role of observer of someone else making a mistake. How do you respond typically? Just think about it for a minute. Don't say it out loud. How do I respond when I see someone else making a mistake? Am I the judge? Am I the one that criticizes, seeks retribution? Am I one of those people who are furthering the collective consciousness of, if you make a mistake, you're bad, shame on you? If we all contribute to that, when we see others make a mistake, we will wind up with a world of defensive people, of lying people, of people that are contributing in a way that it's going down the chain. Have you ever done that? Blame them, and they blame them, and they blame them. And that only leads to more mistakes. So let me finish by telling you this story. And you may have heard it from a tribe called the Babemba tribe in South Africa, how they handle this. When a person acts irresponsibly or unjustly, he's placed in the center of the village, alone and unfettered, unshackled. All work ceases, and every man, woman, and child in the village gathers in a large circle around the accused individual. Then each person in the tribe speaks to the accused one at a time, each recalling the good things the person in the center of the circle has done in his lifetime. Every incident, every experience that can be recalled with any detail and accuracy is recounted. All his positive attributes, good deeds, strengths, and kindnesses are recited carefully and at length. This tribal ceremony often lasts for several days. At the end, the tribal circle is broken, a joyous celebration takes place, and the person is symbolically and literally welcomed back into the tribe. That would be a new way of justice. So, remembering that love fulfills the law, whether we make the mistake or we've observed the mistake, if we can love in this process, which means looking for the good, wanting good, being willing to help good unfold, when we are able to do that, here's what love does up here on the screen. It helps us feel authentically so we can acknowledge what those feelings are and get underneath them. It can help us be honest with ourselves and others. It can help us be fully present in the moment, face our fears, remove blame or judgment, accept responsibility, make amends, grow in understanding, release the weight, and ultimately create a world that works for all. And I'd like to think that this is one of the reasons why Unity in Naperville is here, to be that environment where when we make mistakes, we are surrounded by others who will look for our good, who will seek to be good in our lives and help us find the good. Because that's part of our mission, is that we're here together for personal growing and joyful knowing of our oneness in spirit and with each other. So let's take these ideas into meditation and see if we can't just relax a little in our mistakes and find out what the messages are, what the lessons are, and how we can look at them and take the next step. So let's begin by turning away from the distraction. You might want to close your eyes for this. And become centered. That means be aware from your inside out. Let your body relax so it's not distracting you. Just take a moment to scan through your body and breathe into any tense areas. And take a breath through your heart space, knowing this is God breathing the body. With the next breath, imagine awakening. And in this higher level of consciousness, we invite our higher self to bring to mind something that we would like to heal, that we may think is a mistake or a lesson that we haven't quite figured out how to learn. If you feel mistake-free, see if there's someone else that you've seen make a mistake that you perhaps were the critic of. Take a moment to ask your higher self, how am I responsible? What choice did I make, conscious or unconscious, that contributed to this experience? Was I criticizing someone in order to feel better about myself? Was I withholding good in order to have enough? Was I simply not present in the moment because I allowed myself to be distracted or worried? Whatever the motive for the choice that we made, we take this time to remember the truth. Nothing in this world is the ultimate source of my good. I seek first the kingdom and remember that all of my needs are provided by the infinite substance of God. I behold this divine energy everywhere present, and I easily draw it into something manifest. As my daily bread. Relieved and grateful. I need not fear. I need not deprive another, but know that my good is always present. If the choice that I made was to bring me into acceptance by others, I remind myself I am always loved. I am made of love. I am already whole and complete. Nothing and no one can deny me of my value, nor can they give it to me. I am the light of God expressing. I am love. I am good. Nothing, no one, no mistake that I make can deny me of my natural state of wholeness. In this quiet moment where I know the truth of who I am, I recognize what I am responsible for. And I love myself anyway. In this energy of love, I am open and receptive to my next step, the solution, any amends I am to make. Grateful to know that in truth all is well. I'm grateful for this opportunity to learn and deepen the understanding of my spirit, to take my ego by the hand and train it up in the ways of the Lord. Thank you, God, for the highest wisdom, the deepest peace, the greatest joy of being alive as a spiritual being in this human experience. And now I allow that truth to be. So it is. Amen.